Hi everyone, welcome to the second DAO Council update from the Aventus Council and the final one of 2025. I'm joined by the Aventus Council. We will get into intros in a sec, but thank you for joining me, Matthias, Sean and Ochi. And I won't waste any more time. We can just get into things. So why don't we start with a quick intro of who everyone is? We have already done this on the previous one and on a few other calls, but repetition never hurts. Matthias, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, sure. I'm Matthias. I'm the council chair. I have most of my working life has been in large financial institutions. I worked for a few different banks in asset management and investments in hedge funds. I've moved into the crypto blockchain world about 3 years ago, most recently working for a early stage blockchain VC as head of strategic partnerships. And yeah, I've joined the council like with the vote and the approval of the council via government vote about, what is it now, 2 months ago? Yeah. Sean.
Awesome. Shall I go for my intro? Hi, everyone. So I'm Sean. A bit of background on myself. So I also started my career in traditional finance. I worked at an asset manager and then a hedge fund. And then I moved over to Goldman Sachs. I worked there for 2 or 3 years in one of their front office trading teams. Then I decided to move away from the traditional finance route and go to big tech. So I moved over to Amazon for a couple of years where I led a few tech and product teams. And then I came to Aventus to join the council when I heard about the exciting things that are happening here with the Aventus Cloud. A little bit on maybe what my job is going to be at the council. It's going to be overseeing the product, tech, and growth divisions, let's say. So at the moment, that's mainly focused on node sales. That's the most important thing we need to do at the moment. And then next year is where the real fun starts. We can start making partnerships with other companies and roll out the incredible tech that we've been working on.
Cool.
Over to you, Archie.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm Archie. I am also one of the council members, and I can see on this slide that I'm DAO manager, which is also correct, but I guess in the traditional company sense, DAO manager role is equivalent to company secretariat. And since I currently work as the head of operations at Aventus Network Services Limited, it does suit my role to also manage the administrative aspect of Aventus DAO as well. So a bit of a background myself. So I did my degree in mathematics, but never necessarily pursued that. So most of my career have been within the tech project and program management, and mostly within the managing the business operations functions and varying different organizations, and primarily within the banks as well within the UK. So I've been with Aventus about 4 years and 8-9 months now. So it will almost be 5 years in beginning of April next year. And I do like my job, and I like the team that I work with, and I'm looking forward to continue to work into Aventus DAO from 2026 onwards.
Cool, thanks everyone. So I should have given a bit of an overview on this call before we got into intros. I just got a bit ahead of myself, but we are going to use this final council update of 2025 to kind of take a bit of a step back, do some explanations and education around the structure of the DAO. There have been a lot of changes to the Aventus ecosystem in the last few months and in the upcoming few months, which are all in the best interest of the success of the project, adding value to the ecosystem, streamlining everything working towards the same goal, right? So amongst all those changes, for the people that are working on them every day, it seems very clear and obvious. To people who are just observing or listening to updates, those changes and the new structure might not be super clear. So yeah, we're going to take this session to kind of go through those and explain everything in a good amount of detail. So with that, I think a pretty good place to start is explaining the new structure of the whole ecosystem. And I think Matthias, as the chair of the council, you are probably best positioned to go through this structure.
Sure. Yeah. Just to like a brief overview now, and then we'll go into more details of pretty much all the steps. So the Aventus DAO is comprised of two parts. It's on the one hand, it's the DAO members. On the other side, it's the council, the three of us. The DAO members are split in two parts: the token holders, the ones who can participate in governance proposals. They can put proposals forward. They can use their tokens to vote. They can engage with the DAO. And we will show later on how they can best do that. And then on the other hand, you have the node owners, which is the community who run the nodes to power the entire network. They are rewarded for doing that by receiving tokens of the app change that's going to be running in the cloud, as well as Aventus tokens. So everyone is incentivized. And then on the other side, you have the DAO council. We are overseeing the various departments of marketing, technology, operations, governance, execution, and growth and ecosystem development. Sean and Ochi are overseeing those teams. So later on, they will explain you much better what is comprised of doing that.
Perfect. And again, in the interest of taking a step back and looking at why is there a council at all? Ochi, maybe you can run through this slide of why the council exists and the value that it adds to the ecosystem.
Okay, thank you, Ali. So yes, we've talked about, even in our initial governance proposal, about DAO council and what are key roles and responsibilities. But in this time, I don't want to sort of repeat what we've said already. So I'll explain it in a slightly different way. So hopefully that would make sense. So just going back, Ras Al Khaimah Digital Assets Oasis offers a decentralized Web3 project like ours to be able to set up a legal entity support our community. So as a result, we obtained Aventus DAO license a few months ago, so as you know that. So what does that mean? And the key word here is really the decentralized, but to explain our council member role and responsibility, if we sort of take ourselves back and look at a normal traditional company or the corporation structure, then those traditional company will have shareholders, non-exec directors and exec directors, and the number of verticals that you just saw on the earlier slides that deliver the mandate of the entity. But in our case, instead of we have shareholders, we have a community members, and instead of exec and non-exec directors, we have council members, and of course the multiple verticals will remain and delivering the project. So what that actually means is that sort of as council members, we are mandated to deliver the goals that set out in our initial proposal, which was voted and approved by the community. So in a sense that all of us have the same goal, and it's just that depending on which group of people that we have slightly different responsibilities, and then hopefully that sort of answered the question.
Yeah, thanks, Archie. I think that was a really good explanation. Okay, moving on. So looking specifically at what the council covers. So we spoke about why the council exists, now the council's remit. So Sean, maybe you can take us through all the elements that the council is responsible for running, maintaining, overseeing and executing.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ellie. So obviously at Aventus, we have some incredible teams. So we've got an incredible tech team, we've got an incredible operations team, there's Archie here, and marketing team, which is led by Ellie at the moment. So we've got incredible people working here, and there's a few things that we're working on at the same time and trying to maintain. So the Aventus network is the core ecosystem governance, upgrades, and tooling direction. Obviously, we have the new initiative that we're starting, the very exciting one, which is the Aventus Cloud, which is node sales operations, coordinating with different partners. We have open source tooling. So that's quite a good thing for a company to do, is a respectable thing for a company to do, to open source. But that comes with certain maintenance requirements when you want to open source something. So there's a lot of work from the tech team going on there. There's the treasury management, which is budgeting, grants and resource allocation. There's the ecosystem growth and marketing. So how are we communicating our message of what Aventus is and what Aventus wants to do internally to the community and externally, which is going to become very important, especially next year when we're trying to form partnerships with great companies to come on board into our ecosystem. And then we have listings, partnerships, and ecosystem programs. So this is where we're approved by governance. So this is where the community can come and vote on which partnerships they think are going to be the best ones for us to make. So I think that's the general overview of the things that the council is covering.
Awesome, thanks, Sean. And the role of the council here really is to make sure that these things all happen cohesively, working under like the same strategy, making sure priorities are organized properly, knowing, you know, this is really important right now and this can maybe wait a little bit longer based on everything that's going on internally and externally, rather than having sorry, my computer's making a weird noise. Rather than having lots of individual, independent, silo teams who are kind of each doing their own thing, not necessarily working towards the same goal, not having necessarily the same objectives as each other. The council makes sure that everyone's singing the same tune, really, don't they? Okay. And so council responsibilities. So, I mean, the previous slide was essentially everything the council is responsible for, but these, being a council member and the council as a whole has certain, like Ochi was explaining, it's the DAO is a legal entity, and so being on the council comes with legal responsibilities and liabilities in order to make sure that things are running legally and smoothly and compliantly. Otherwise, people on the council are the ones that are held responsible. So I guess that's the less fun part about your guys' job. But Matthias, why don't you talk us through some of the responsibilities that are on the council, partly legally and partly as laid out via the approved proposal for the incorporation of the Aventus DAO.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and at the risk of repeating some of the stuff that has previously been mentioned, but the council is responsible to manage the DAO internally. So that means, as I said, managing the team, managing budgets, managing vendors and softwares and everything that like are necessary to run a company. Then also we are responsible to work with partners, get into good partnerships, work with the ecosystem as a whole, coordinating those partnerships within the ecosystem, but then also ensure that we are compliant with all the relevant regulations where applicable. And then on the other hand, we have a certain responsibility to token holders and to the community. So when a proposal passes, then it's our responsibility to make sure that the outcome is delivered, that those proposals are executed, as long as they're legal and feasible. We have to make sure that the community has the necessary tools to do the voting, so they know where to have the tokens, how to vote, where to vote, when to vote. And then lastly, our responsibility is to be transparent in everything we do. So this is regular, probably quarterly reporting. This is formats like these where we introduce like the roadmap, where we talk about what's happening sort of behind the scenes, to make sure that everyone's aligned. And so also to just offer measurable objectives, so everyone knows what direction this is going, and then also they can see where we are in the process, and then if they're not happy, they can interact with us, and we'll go into that a bit later.
Awesome, thanks, Matthias. And then there are certain accountability and safeguard measures to make sure that in some parallel universe, not with any of you guys, but that the council or any council can't necessarily just run wild and go crazy and do whatever they want in order to protect the ecosystem and the community. So Ochi, as the nominated, I guess, Aventus mom for the last 4 years, why don't you talk about the accountability and safeguards that surround council operations?
Cool. Yeah, thank you. I guess overall, we, as I mentioned before, council members, our key objective is really to make sure that we are supporting our community and safeguarding our project and deliver the goals that approved by the community members, right? So, and in order to do so, we need to be transparent, and we need to engage our community effectively so they understand that the project is delivering what we promised to deliver and within the timeline. And if there are any specific decisions that needs to be made, or we may potentially, due to some unforeseen circumstances, we may need to pivot and make some other material decisions, then it is our duty to ensure that we communicate that effectively to all the relevant parties and community, and explain why, and then what the next steps that the proposal would be, so that as we all kind of said, that at the end of the day, we all work together to achieve the goal that we set out to do. So thank you, Ellie, for setting up these monthly calls. So, for example, that in terms of reporting, we've already started giving our community and token holders our monthly updates, and then there will be quarterly updates will be provided to the community as well. We will do the same AMA at the end of each quarter, and then within that quarter, we will summarize what we have delivered against what we set out to do, and as well as what is our strategic goal for the next quarter. And then the monthly cadence will start, and then we will start breaking down for each of those activities as well.
Amazing, thanks, Ochi. And then when we talk about decisions that have to be made within the ecosystem, there are, like you said, Ochi, we're all working towards the same goal of adding value to the ecosystem, to the project, to token holders. And within that, there are various levels of decisions that have to be made. Now, some of those are within the council's mandate to make those decisions, like especially on day-to-day. strategic and execution basis, it just makes sense for there to be a group of people that make decisions on a daily basis. It wouldn't necessarily make sense for every single decision to go to a vote, have a discussion, have people vote on it, and then have to execute it, nor would it necessarily be in the best interest of the ecosystem, right? Because there is no cohesive strategy working towards a goal with a chance to see whether that's going to succeed. So yes, some of those decisions are council level, some of them are going to be governance level, and then some that sit outside of either of those kind of frameworks on a rare basis. So I'm aware that as I was talking, I'll probably just kind of went through most of this slide. But Ochi, is there anything that you wanna add to that, or maybe examples that you want to give on which decisions fall into which bucket and why some decisions might fall into certain categories?
Sure. Yes, I think you've pretty much answered that yourself, Ellie. But yes, I will give an example just to support what you've just said. It's actually a very, very good slide, Ellie. Thank you for that. And probably the best example I could give. Let's start from the bottom, shall we? So. The most recent example is the sort of protocol change, right? And so we project proposed Aventus Cloud, a new project, and also the project proposed that the infrastructural change, and also some treasury allocation funding of $50,000 equivalent AVT to help support setting up of that DAO entity. So that would probably fall under the initial emergency actions, probably I could think of, and then it went to the community, right? So the community made their decision through the governance voting process, and then that was their decision went through, and then once the proposal passed, and then it goes to the council mandated decision. So for example, we all know that certain percentage of the revenue from the node sales will be spent or used for the DAO OPEX, operational expenditure, to deliver our projects, to run the team itself. So that budget and how we're going to deliver, and the plan, and who we're going to engage in terms of the vendor selections, and when and how we're going to deliver, all of that will sit within the council members, and then council members will work with the respective vertical teams to make sure that actually happens. And then we will continue to report on the cadence we've just discussed.
Yeah, cool. So I guess you could kind of summarize it by saying day-to-day decisions, like you said, vendors, I don't know, which social media platform we're going to use, which, I don't know, Sean, maybe you can give like a tech example, because I definitely can't, but I won't ask you to, don't worry. But day-to-day decisions are for the council to make. Big protocol or structural decisions fall to the community to vote on via governance, or anything that requires treasury spend outside of what the council has been allocated for their day-to-day operations, right? So if the council was like, we want to give a grant to this really promising app chain out of treasury, then that would go to a governance vote for the community to decide, do we think this is going to add value to our ecosystem or not? And then in my mind, I guess, Ochi, you may have also been around long enough to remember this as well. An emergency action would be like, if another COVID happened, for those of you that have been around long enough, you'll remember that Aventus used to be an event ticketing protocol on blockchain, and then COVID happened and there were no events, and there was a big pivot. And so in my mind, that would be classed as an emergency action, deciding to pivot to a completely new direction for completely unforeseen, impossible to predict events that requires a very quick change. So yes, I was mostly just summarising for my own understanding, but hopefully one of our explanations helps people who are watching understand.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, but it's actually nicely structured out. So yeah, hopefully that is clear exactly where the responsibilities lie.
Yeah, cool. So Matthias, at the beginning of this call, you mentioned that we're going to dive a bit more into how DAO members, or otherwise known as ecosystem, otherwise known as token holders, can interact with the council. And there are, I guess, three main ways that people in the ecosystem can interact with council and shape the strategy while the council makes those like day-to-day strategic decisions. So maybe you can run through those three main ways for us.
Yeah, sure. So the most formal one is to bring a proposal on the government's website where you suggest a draft as a community member. That draft will go into a community review and feedback by like both the community, and also the council can chip in. If necessary, any amendments are made before the government's proposal goes live, then it's going to be live for a minimum set period. So people can start to vote. And then depending on the outcome, if it's successful, then as mentioned, the council is responsible to execute if the proposal meets certain requirements of legality and feasibility, basically. It's very important to be in those proposals, to be very specific, to be very clear about what the goal is that you want to reach, and what you're expecting in terms of outcome. So, which also brings me to the next way, which you can interact with, which is a bit less formal, but it's always open. We're always open for constructive feedback, for suggestions, as long as you're specific about what the problem is that you're solving for, and what your proposed solution is. Then we have our official channels, and everyone is more than welcome to participate. And then we will take that into consideration, and where possible, we'll make the improvements. And then also very importantly is that the community has the power to hold the council accountable. So we have to be, as we said, our responsibility is to be transparent with the community. The community has voting power. They have rights, so they can hold us accountable to be to meet certain timelines, to meet deliverables, to be clear with what the direction is that we're taking the DAO, and just to be sure that everyone is in line, everyone is in line, and everyone is on the same page, that we can do our best job, but everyone knows what's going on. So that's very important in this format, really.
I think that last one's a really interesting one, or a really important one for people to remember, rather, because it's often not the case that the council is not doing certain work. It is, in my experience, the majority of the time the case that the person who's asking just hasn't seen the relevant communication, whether that's like because we haven't said it enough, marketing hasn't said it in the right way, or someone has just, not been on social media for a few days and has missed it, which everyone is entitled to do. So asking to be able to see progress and getting all the correct information and telling us as a team what it is you want to see from us, so we know and we can improve our communication and transparency before assuming that things have just not happened, is often a much quicker and easier for everyone involved and more productive way of getting everyone on the same page, right?
100%. I think it will be mostly about transparency, or maybe we didn't explain it in the right way, what's happening. It's hopefully will never be the case that we didn't do a certain job that is our responsibility, but just a matter of us communicating correctly. and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And I guess the other thing to note is looking at the slide now, I think I kind of put everything upside down in terms of the steps that you might want to take when you're interacting with the council. So first, ask to see what it is that you want to see and see if the council can provide it. Then make constructive suggestions and try and work with the council. And then, of course, you always have the option to bring a proposal to enforce or try and have executed, if the rest of the community agrees with you, the changes that you want to see. One other thing that I'll note is we had some questions from the community on why the draft and feedback phase is essential in governance proposals. And so I just want to, hijack your guys' call for a sec to touch on that and share that it's essential for two reasons. One, for your own benefit as a proposer, your proposal might not include some detail, might have missed a certain perspective that once people share that, and if you choose to include it in your amendments, more likely get you more votes and have your proposal passed, rather than people just being forced to completely reject your proposal because it doesn't consider or include one element that other people might think is very important. Two, it's important because it gives people a formal heads up that a proposal is coming to make sure that their tokens are in the correct place, in the correct wallet. We'll do a separate session on governance education, but you can only vote on proposals if your tokens are on chain at the time the proposal goes live. If a proposal goes live as a surprise or suddenly, then people don't have the chance to move their tokens on chain. Even if they move their tokens, while the proposal is live, they still won't be able to vote. So to give the maximum number of people the chance to vote on your proposal, allow you to achieve your quorum and get as many votes as possible in, and make sure it's as representative of the community as possible, it's essential to give people a heads up that proposals are coming. Sorry for that brief detour. Okay, now we've, I think, given a pretty comprehensive overview of the DAO and the council and everyone's place in the DAO ecosystem and the responsibilities. Let's look ahead at the council's goals, I guess, for the next 6 to 9 months. So, Sean, we've not heard from you for a while. Hello.
I'm still here. Yeah. Hello.
Why don't you run us through basically what we've seen and are continuing to work on in the last bit of 2025, and then through the first 9 months of 2026.
Sure. So I guess on a very, very high level, the main goal of what we're doing here and the main things we need to achieve, first and foremost, is essentially fundraising through note sales, right? So we need that money in the treasury, which we can then deploy. Once we have that, then we can start using that, and essentially we'll be using that in its entirety to build partnerships with great companies. And then once we have a few great partnerships working, we're going to attract more companies, and all of these app chains which are going to live on top of the nodes are essentially going to be making the Aventus Cloud nodes more and more valuable as time goes on. So that's really what we need to do. In terms of some of the timelines that we've got, so really this past sort of 2 months has been establishing the council cadence, where updates live, how often what's included, more of the governance side, making sure that you guys can come and vote on things, which is essential for the running of the DAO, but then also making sure that we have the roadmap properly for the tech. So as soon as we have the founding tranche sold and we get to work on actually building the Aventus Cloud software, which is essentially the node that people are going to be buying, we have 3 months to build a working software product that people can run on their computer. So obviously we need to make sure we are planning in advance to hit that target and deliver very good tech, which is essential. Aventus builds very good tech, and this is a very important venture for us. So we need to make sure that tech that we deliver is going to be great. So that's when we move into Q1. And the first node sales campaign officially launches. So I guess up until now, my job has mainly been getting on many calls. trying to help our node sellers with selling the nodes. That's going to continue. So we've set up a good foundation there, and the reception has been very positive. That's going to continue next year, and if anything, accelerate. So that's going to be a big part of what we're going to be doing in Q1 next year. There's also going to be a big education piece for the node operators. We want people buying the nodes to have a very simple journey with the nodes, we don't want to require a lot of technical expertise for running the nodes. So we're going to make sure that we have a lot of educational materials and onboarding sessions for people that do buy the nodes and want to participate in the network. And then we will be launching the actual Aventus Cloud software, which is going to be very exciting. And then, of course, we will do our first quarterly review session where we can see what went wrong and what went right. Hopefully more of it went right than wrong. With the Aventus Cloud actual software, as with any good tech, it's an iterative process, right? So we're not going to build it once and then launch it and that's it. We're going to be continuously improving it. Then moving on to Q2, that's when we actually can look at some use cases of node operators and testimonials, which is going to be used by our marketing team to drive further adoption. And when we get to start working with our app chains, or start making partnerships with companies and onboarding their app chains. So I think that's going to be a very exciting quarter where the ecosystem is going to really start to grow. Once we have our war chest, once we have our initial runway with the first node sales, we can start ramping up in terms of growing the ecosystem with great partnerships. And it's very important that the first few partnerships we make, we really do our due diligence and make sure they're good partnerships to have, because the success stories with the first few partnerships are what's going to drive the next partnerships. And there's essentially an unlimited amount of partnerships that we want to make, right? And that's ultimately going to make Aventus Cloud a success, and ultimately going to make the node operators the most rewards. Of course, the community is going to be involved in all of this, so we're going to be trying to find as many good partnerships as we can, and we're going to show you guys, and you're going to tell us which ones you think we should go ahead with, which is the beauty of this DAO structure. And then Q3, we're going to be doing a lot of the same stuff. This is never going to really end. We're raising funds and we're making partnerships for the foreseeable future. But we want to make sure that as we're doing this, we continuously improving our documentation. We're making sure that our FAQs are constantly being refined. And we do want to make sure we are looking, inwards at what's gone well and what hasn't gone well. We need to hold ourselves accountable. We need to improve. And in order to do that, we need to analyze the results and see what went well to get us to a certain place, and some things we could have done better. Then we'll make sure we do that better for the next round.
Amazing, thanks, Sean. And something that I think is really useful to end on is an overview of, again, in the theme of taking a step back, looking at Aventus Cloud as a whole and how it will continue to drive value for the Aventus ecosystem. Lots of people understand, okay, node sales equals money into treasury, money for the DAO in the short term, but then how does that create a ongoing cyclical effect of value that can then continue to drive and sustain itself in the long term. So I don't know if you can see my mouse, but if you start kind of like 11 o'clock, where after the first tranche, nodes can only be purchased in AVT, creating recurring token demand and utility. Maybe Sean, you can close off and talk us through this like ongoing value creation for the ecosystem.
100%. So I think this is actually a really good thing to understand, and this is what's really exciting about what we're about to do, this flywheel effect. So yeah, if you start at the top left kind of part of this flywheel here. So after the founding tranche, which is essentially $1 million in sales, everything else it needs to be bought in AVT. Essentially, the treasury needs to be sent AVT. We like our coin. We think it's very valuable, and we actually think it's so valuable we want to be paid in AVT, right? So all of those proceeds from the node sales are going to go into the treasury. Now, we have an operational budget for the DAO to actually execute, and all of our team members. But essentially, all of the money that goes into the treasury has one purpose. And the purpose, moving on to the next sort of point here, is new incentives and app chains. That's essentially the purpose of the whole treasury. We can use our war chest, we can use our runway of money in the treasury to form these partnerships with companies, help them build app chains, and even go through their own node selling round, which then their nodes can run on top of the Aventus cloud nodes, which is essentially going to be the base of all of this, and which is why it's such a good product that we're building. When the enterprise launches their bespoke app chains, the tokens from that bespoke app chain are also going to feed down to the node operators. And this is a sort of a repeatable process, as I was mentioning before. We're not just going to try and get one app chain or two app chains. We're continuously going to be trying to find partners to work with that we think would be a good partnership, that we can add real value to their companies and their ecosystems with an app chain. And in turn, they can add real value to our app chain and ecosystem by onboarding on top of the Aventus cloud nodes. So it's going to be, we're forming very synergistic relationships between ourselves, Aventus, and our ecosystem, and the companies that we want to work with. So yeah, moving on to the next one. So these companies, these app chains, they can distribute nodes to their own communities via either our sellers or they can try and sell the nodes themselves, and they're going to be hosted directly and in a decentralized manner on the Aventus cloud nodes. So you consider that this is like the AWS of blockchain. We have the first layer, and all of these app chains can come and sit on top of our network that we've created through this initial node selling process. Then, of course, it's as well as being paid in AVT, which will be initially the biggest part of running an Aventus node. Over time, that should become less and less of the important part of running an Aventus node, because 5% of all the hosted app chain node returns are going to go to the node operators. And again, there's no end to this necessarily. So every year we've got targets to hit in terms of app chain adoption, and the value of the node is essentially going to keep going up as we onboard new app chains that sit on top of Aventus Cloud, and the rewards from those app chains get paid down to the node operators. So yeah, I've covered the last point there, which is the value is continuously increasing, and that's the point of this, and that's how we create in this flywheel effect of money coming into the treasury, money from the treasury being deployed towards forming great synergistic relationships and partnerships with other companies and their app chains. The app chains in turn sitting and running on top of the Aventus Cloud nodes, which in turn pays more rewards to the Aventus Cloud node operators. And we repeat and we repeat. So I think that's a very important thing to understand. And that's one of the things I'm super excited about next year, which is when we really start working with all these companies and forming these partnerships. And then we can really see the sky's the limit to where we can take this. And that's what's very exciting about it from my point of view. And I think from everyone on this call's point of view.
Definitely from my point of view. Okay, that was the end, I believe, of everything. Yeah, that was the end of everything we had to show you guys on this call. Is there anything that any of our faculty council would like to add before we wrap up?
I'd just like to say it's a very exciting future. So strap in.
And I wish our community and then everybody who's watching or will watch the recording have a good festive break. And then we're all looking forward to come back in 2026 and do it all again.
Yep.
And more. 100%.
Yeah, more, exactly. Yes. Yeah, short break for summer, much needed R&R, and then back to hit the ground running for 2026 in January. Okay, as always, thank you to the three of you for taking time to join and run us through everything. Thanks to everyone who took the time to watch either live or recorded version. If you're watching on or around the day this was recorded, hope you have a lovely holiday break. If not, then I guess I'm too late in those wishes, and we will see you back in January. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you, everyone.
Really.
Thanks, Ellie.